Hello again guys, it's Carly from the Poetry of Nice, and today I have part number 6. If I got that right, in my what I wish I would have known before becoming an online reseller series. If you're new to my channel, welcome. This is a channel all about reselling online. I currently sell on eBay, Poshmark and Etsy, and on this channel you're going to find all kinds of different videos related to that, everything from haul videos to sales videos, tutorials, how-tos, day in the lives, and all kinds of other stuff in between. So if that sounds interesting, please do think about hitting that subscribe button down below, and don't forget to say hello in the comments so that I can say hi back. So we're on number 6 in this 8-part series. I can't believe how quickly it's gone. And today the subject that I'm going to go ahead and touch on, which you probably see already from the title, is bookkeeping. I'm going to start this with a disclaimer. I bet you all know what's coming, but my disclaimer is when it comes to bookkeeping for your online reselling business or any kind of business really, I absolutely 100% recommend that you seek the guidance and the support, all that kind of stuff, of a CPA. And I say that because I am not a tax expert. Obviously, I sell clothes on the internet, so it's really important that you make sure that you protect yourself and you make sure that you are doing everything you need to do in order to comply with tax laws and things like that. So a CPA is definitely a must in my opinion. Outside of that, of course, I do feel comfortable sharing with you what I do personally in terms of tracking and bookkeeping throughout the year for my reselling business. I do work with a CPA. I actually didn't for a year, and that was a mistake because it was really complicated when it comes down to like business taxes, state taxes, personal taxes, all that kind of stuff, all the different licenses that you need. The letters just keep coming, and it's really hard, I think, in my personal opinion, to make heads or tails of what the heck they are asking for you and what you actually need to pay and when. So I 100% from personal experience suggest that you work with a CPA. This is what I do in order to present my CPA when it comes around to tax season with my profit and loss statement. That is a document that they are going to ask you for, and they again will be able to advise you what you need to have present on that document and what you need to take into account and how they want you to take those different facts and figures into account and essentially translate them into that document. So in terms of what I personally track throughout the year, I track the miles I drive to go sourcing. Now someone asked me recently if I use my business account, which I'll touch on a little bit later, what that means for me, to put the gas in my car to go sourcing, and I don't, because our vehicle is a family vehicle. There is no way in the world that I would be able to put the gas in my car and ensure that it was only used for business purposes. So I track the miles to and from sourcing destinations instead, and again in just a little while I'll tell you exactly how I do that and what products I use to make that easier on myself. I also track my cost of goods. That means the inventory that I have purchased throughout the year in order to sell online on the various platforms that I sell on. I track anything that I pay for tax services or legal services for my business. Last year that was things like filing my LLC. Now I'm not sure how that works in terms of actually claiming certain things on your tax. Again, I couldn't say, I'm not a CPA, but those are things that I feel very strongly about tracking anyway. It's very important for me to know exactly what I'm paying and where when it comes out of my business account and my profit margins and things like that. So absolutely anything to do with taxes or legal services. I track my supplies. So this is things like office supplies. This is where I store my items, like in totes and things like that. I purchase backdrops for photography. I purchased a laptop last year specifically for businesses. I have a Dymo printer that I swear by that I purchased as well. I purchased things like labels and the packaging materials like tissue paper and thank you cards, all of those little incidentals. Again, all go through my business account. I will go into depth with that just a little bit later on, but I do keep a track of all of those things as well, because at the end of the day they are things that are coming out of my profit margin as well. Now there are a few different ways that I keep track of things. Again, nothing in this video is sponsored in any way. These are just legitimately the products that I use in order to track things on a year-to-year basis. So number 1 would be QuickBooks Intuit. I use that because I find that's the easiest way to keep a track of my miles. It is very intuitive. It literally pops up on the app on my phone and prompts me to swipe left or right to say if it is a personal journey or a business journey, and so I can do that, and it's very simple for me to stay on top of that. It's by date, so I can look and say, okay, every Saturday morning I know that I'm sourcing, and I can go ahead and put that in the category it needs to, and at the end of the year I have a nice big number there of the approximate amount that I would have spent on the miles that I drove to sourcing destinations. There are a lot of other things as well I believe you can do with QuickBooks, and I have to be honest, I don't use a lot of them. I do a lot of it manually because I like to oversee everything in a very specific way, but definitely I would suggest looking into that if you're looking for somewhere to start in terms of following and tracking your taxes and your expenditures and your profits and all that kind of stuff. You can link it to accounts, I believe, so you can see all the comings and goings as well. We also use a product called TaxJar. We pay for that monthly as a subscription that helps us to track our sales tax. Now sales tax is a little bit iffy right now. It used to be that you pretty much just had to pay the sales tax or collect sales tax and then pay the sales tax for the state that you lived in. If you sold to somebody in your same state, that is where it became applicable. Now, however, it's all getting a little bit funny because the laws changed in terms of online retail and who needs to charge sales tax for where and all that kind of stuff. So some of the platforms, I'm not going to go into this too deep because I don't know enough to go too deep. Again, CPA is where I would start, especially a CPA that is familiar with the laws around like e-commerce and selling online and all that kind of stuff. But I know some of the platforms are fairly on top of it. eBay is fairly on top of it. Poshmark, as far as I can tell, is not. They are not particularly intuitive when it comes to collecting sales tax. So that is something to bear in mind when you are deciding which platform to sell on and making sure that you are keeping a good solid track of where you are selling to and what you may owe at the end of that. I personally keep an Excel spreadsheet, so that is where I keep my most detailed tracking of where I'm spending money and when I'm spending money and how much I'm spending, particularly when it comes to cost of goods and my inventory to sell. So on my Excel spreadsheet, I will just have like the date, I'll have the place that I purchased my item from, so I can track like where, sometimes like where my best sourcing is done. That's always good for me to do. I'll have the amount of items that I purchased. I'll have the average cost of goods broken down because that helps me at the end of the year know my overall average cost of goods. And then sometimes I used to know if I had any flaws and things like that, so I could keep a track of how many damaged items I had to give away, but I don't do that anymore. And again, discuss with the CPA, they're happy with that, for me to not submit like flawed items or whatever. Honestly, it's so few and far between and my cost of goods is so low, it's really not worth the time and effort that it takes. I just go ahead and redonate them as long as they're not absolute scrappers, you know, if it's a small stain or a hole. I also keep all of my hard copy receipts. So that's very easily said and done when it comes to things like thrift stores or whatever. I just keep the receipt and put it in a little miniature binder, and then at the end of the year I have them all in case I happen to get audited or anything like that. I have all of my backup hard copies. However, when you're like me and you usually source your items at yard sales or rummage sales and things like that, where cash is their primary source of payment that they take, usually you're not going to get a receipt with that. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. I keep it if I do, but if I don't, that's where my Excel spreadsheet comes into play. I make sure I keep a documentation essentially of where things were purchased, when they were purchased, and again, amount of items, cost of goods, average, all that kind of stuff. But this is where I'm going to go into having the business account. So I've spoken about this a few times, but my number one tip personally, like me right now, is to get yourself a business account that is solely for the comings and goings of your reselling business. I have one with a local credit union here near where I live. I went and sat down with them, explained what I needed, and we were able to open that up and put everything through that. So what that means for me is that I can track all of the expenses that I have with my associated with my business, whether that is again purchasing inventory. I can have the backup receipt for the thrift store, but it shows up on my electronic receipt as well to do with my bank account. And also I know that every single cash withdrawal I make at an ATM, whether it's $10 or $100, that has been taken out, it's been withdrawn for the sole purpose of purchasing inventory at a cash only opportunity, I suppose you could say, like a yard sale or a rummage sale. So that helps me keep track as well, making sure that I'm not overlooking some of the inventory that I've purchased and some of the money I've had to spend doing that on a yearly basis. I also purchase all my supplies through that as well, whether it's online or local. If I need to pop into the dollar store and pick up some more tissue paper for wrapping items, I do it with my business account. If I need to purchase something from Amazon, like a new backdrop, I do it with my business account. That is the one hard fast rule that I have, and the one suggestion I would absolutely make for you guys as well. Again, an electronic trail is really useful when it comes to tax season. Now, whether or not this is useful to anybody, I'm not sure, but I'm gonna share it with you anyway because it kind of falls within the umbrella of what I'm talking about. But when it comes to my actual like working accounts, like I said, I have my business account and I do have my PayPal account as well because that's how I get paid through eBay still. I always keep a float, and I wanted to share that because it's not something I always did, and I'm really, really glad that I do it now. When it comes to PayPal, I always keep at least $50 when I cash out every single week. And by the way, every single week I pay my fees on every single platform on a Sunday night when I'm done shipping. I pay the fees for that week once a month with eBay. That's a subscription fee as well. That week's a little more painful than others, but I pay it there to make sure that I'm up to date with everything. And I go ahead and withdraw all of the money that is like mine to keep, essentially. So PayPal, I always keep $50 floating there. That is because if you don't have money in your PayPal account and someone requests a return, and whether eBay approves it automatically or you approve it, if you don't have money in your PayPal, that's going to slow the process down significantly and potentially really annoy your buyer. I know this from personal experience. It ended up being like 8 days until the person could get their refund back from me. And as you can imagine, as a customer, they weren't too happy about that. So that $50 basically gives me a little bit of wiggle room for any kind of surprise returns or fees that just pop up out of nowhere. Like I said, it just fills back up during the week, and at the end of the week I just bring out everything but that $50 float, and we're good to go again. Also, as a personal choice, I do like to keep a float in my business account as well at all time. That just means that I will always have a little bit of positive cash flow. For me, it's $200, just because, again, cost of goods is low and I usually am able to anticipate before I go sourcing and prepare the way that I need to, but I like to keep a little bit there just in case. And yes, it gives me the opportunity to purchase things on a whim if the opportunity arises, and also for some of the subscriptions I mentioned to you, like TaxJar and Intuit and things like that, that will be withdrawn every single month, and that means that I'm never going to go overdrawn on that. I just like to keep that there as a little bit of a safety net. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much everything that I have to share with you about how I go about bookkeeping and keeping a good solid track of all of my incomings and all of my outgoings to do with my business. All right, I hope that that little bit of sharing was useful to somebody, whether or not you're just beginning or you're starting to get everything together, ready to go speak to that CPA for the first time about your taxes and getting everything together for your reselling business. Hopefully these were a few pointers that are going to help you get started on that road as you try to accumulate all of the information that you're going to need to have. All right, please do hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed this video. Please do hit subscribe if you want to come back and hang out again, and don't forget to say hello in the comments so that I can say hi back, and I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye, you guys.